Adam, week 4, and it's the start of conference play, and nice day out here in Boulder, and another spirited day of practice. I mean, I will say I know fans get on this, that they're having good practice and things like that, but I will say the energy that we've heard through the gates has still been pretty good. And I don't know about the players you've talked to, but there still seems to be some confidence and some belief on this team that at least from the few guys I've talked to, there's no give up and there's no, this season's over. It sounds like guys, and hearing through the gates, there's still some, energy and there's some positivity going on here.
Yeah, all that stuff's important for those guys, obviously, but in terms of analysis of this football team, it's not, because until that's translated over to Saturday in a game, I mean, fans don't want to hear that, and we really can't, mention that anymore until it actually translates.
I agree with you, although I will say, I mean, there are times that we've covered teams in the past that you could see that that demoralizing feeling on these guys, and the season's just kind of over at that point. I don't see that at this point. I think part of it is that this is the start of conference play, and there is a belief that, hey, we're 0-0 in conference, and there's still, in their minds, there's still that chance that they can have a good conference season, and you have to applaud them for that. They at least feel that there's a fresh start here.
On some level, it's almost easier for them, right? Because they can kind of insulate themselves and look at the film and say, okay, if I had done that differently from individual to position standpoint, I think it's easier for them than it is those on the outside that just haven't seen it on Saturdays. And if they are making good plays in practice, then they have that belief. But until it happens in a game. But I think hitting reset, this is the last time you can do that, though, right?
Yeah. It's pretty much, well, you have the bye week. I guess you have 2 weeks, and then there's a bye week. You can sort of reset there. But the start of conference play is it's here now, right? I mean, you've got to perform at this point.
Yeah, and there's, I guess, the 4 most winnable games, if you want to call them that at this point, are the next 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, with the bye in there, the next 5 games.
Yeah.
And UCLA coming to town, they haven't won here since that overtime win in 2014. So they have good history against UCLA here. UCLA's 3-0, but they're 5th in the conference in scoring offense and scoring defense, and they haven't played anybody yet.
Yeah.
I guess South Alabama looks like a pretty decent, Sun Belt type team, but to have a last-second field goal to beat them, and Zach Charbonnet is banged up, their star running back. I think had we seen anything out of the CU team the last 3 weeks, we'd be tempted to maybe even pick an upset here, or at least a close game. Yeah. We'll get into that later. I'm not going to do that, but this is not a great UCLA team based on what they've shown. They're still, even with that 3-0 start, they're still 4 games under 500 during the Chip Kelly era there. So this should be a game that, if you're Colorado and you're trying to achieve some of your goals, that you expect to win, and that's just not the case right now, at least from the outside again.
Yeah, and a big reason for that is quarterback, and I think we certainly have to talk about that, and that they still haven't settled this thing, and that's a concern that you're in week 4 and you still don't really know who your quarterback's going to be, and we've seen option A, B, and C at this point, right? A being Brendan Lewis, B being JT Shrout, C being the rotation. Is it time for option D, which is Owen McCown, or a rotation of the 3? I guess there's still another couple options, but it is concerning that you're week 4 and you still don't know who that is. And Carl Durrell told us today, hey, all 3 of those guys are taking first team reps, so it's a 3-man rotation in practice at least.
Does it make you wonder a little bit if Colorado had named a starting quarterback 10 days before the TCU game and let him start and play the majority of those first 3 games, where they would potentially be? Yeah. Now, they might potentially be in the same spot if JT Shrout didn't show any improvement in there, but I don't know. I've thought about that this week. Like, how much better would he be? Like, you look at that fumble in the Minnesota game, that's a guy that just hasn't gotten hit a lot. He hadn't played in a game in 2 years, and I think had he had some game reps under his belt, he's going to take that hit and not fumble that ball. At least that's how I would project a guy coming back and getting those reps to improve would play. So obviously we know what they did at Minnesota didn't work. You can't do that again. If they do that again, I mean, then I don't even know. I would be at a loss for words like I am right now, because you can't do that.
Right.
Either you go with JT Shrout or you throw Owen McCown in there and see what he can do.
Yeah. I talked to Mike Sanford after practice today and asked him, why is this not working so far? And the number one thing he said was that lack of continuity at quarterback. And I asked him, said, do you wish at some point you would have done what you just talked about? And he said we could have done that. He goes, but there truly was never a time that one of those guys stood out and deserved to be named the guy. And hindsight's 20/20 in that regard, but I mean they were truly trying to figure it out. But he did admit, I mean, that continuity, that lack of it, is really hurting the offense right now, and that's not the only thing, but that's certainly the big thing. And I think that if this team, in my opinion, if this team's going to settle in and get any better, you've got to settle on a guy at some point.
Yeah, the worst decision is no decision, and I kind of disagree with Carl Jarrell with Brendan Lewis, as he said, even in mid-July, being in the driver's seat, when you struggle that much in 12 starts, even when there's other issues around you, you can question the play calling. The offensive line obviously struggled last year. That was still enough of a sample size that it shouldn't have been. There should not have been an incumbent starter at quarterback. So yeah. I keep kind of going back to that. And if JT Sherratt was going to win the job before the knee surgery, the fact that he was showing, at least something in the spring, even though he can do team period and enough during those scrimmages, it seemed like the right answer at the time. Yeah. On the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's all in the past, and they can't change that. Obviously, yeah. We'll see going forward. But Sanford also told me, he said the one thing is that the guys on this offense still believe in what we're doing. He goes, I've been in places where guys don't believe it. You're struggling, and you can tell that guys don't believe in what you're doing. He goes, the guys still here believe this, but we've got to have some better execution and figure out the quarterback thing. So we'll see if that happens this week. So I guess prediction time. UCLA, as you mentioned, they haven't blown teams out. I mean, they're 3-0, but it's not a super impressive 3-0. But they're a better football team than Colorado right now. What's your prediction as they come into Folsom?
The biggest difference between these two programs is the quarterback position. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a lot of ups and downs in his career there at UCLA, but that guy's played in 40 football games. I had to look back because it feels like he's been there forever. Yeah. But it's because he came in 2018 and started playing right away. That's why it feels like that. He's playing pretty darn good football now. Again, hasn't been tested against a Power 5 defense, and Colorado hasn't played like a Power 5 defense through 3 games. So I would continue to expect to see him play well. They've got talent beyond Zach Charbonnet on offense. Defensively, I think the Bruins will give up some points. So if you're Colorado and you can't score a couple touchdowns against this defense, this Bruins defense, I don't know when you do that, if you do that at all this season. So I think the odds makers have it about right. The line opened at 21 points. Give me UCLA winning this game 38-17.
I was going to go the same exact prediction as you, and we talked about that beforehand.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I'm going to go a little bit different because this team has not scored more than 1 touchdown in a game so far, and 2 of them we've seen in garbage time. So I'm not going to predict 2 touchdowns. I'll go with 1 touchdown, and I'll say 38-13. I think that UCLA wins this fairly easily, and we'll see if the offense gets going a little bit. But they need it. I mean, I think being at Folsom may help them, and maybe that helps them cover and play a better game, but it certainly can't hurt, being at Folsom.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what type of crowd shows up as well. I think noon kickoff. It's crazy that it sounds to say that it's early for college students, but frankly it is, following a Friday night. So I can't imagine they're going to have this anywhere near the same energy they had for the TCU game. So kind of anxious to see how that looks as well.
Well, we'll see if the team has the same energy we've been hearing through the gates of the practice field this week. And Adam and I will be back after the game to talk about it.